Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Black Authors Rock. I am Dee Bowden. I'm the author of Collect the Cash. Come on in the room, come on in the room, come on in the room. Happy Friday. It is July 2nd, 2021. For those of you who follow me on this platform and others, thank you so much for showing up. Today, I asked for the opportunity to talk about Collect the Cash. And why did I decide to write this book? Why did I decide to share my story? Why did I decide that this was an important thing to do? To Dr. LaTracy and the Black Authors Rock community, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. So, happy Friday, y'all. Let me take a deep breath. Let me get into my chair. Let's get this party started. So, why did I write Collect the Cash? Well, the reason I wrote Collect the Cash really started last year during COVID. As I call it, God's timeout. So, as I was sitting here last year looking at our world changing on so many levels, I kept thinking, okay, what are you going to have to show when you come out of COVID? And so one of my buddies is a writing coach, and she said, hey, you can write a book in 90 days or less. And I thought she was kidding. She was like, no, I'm serious. You can literally write a book, Collect the Cash, or something else in 90 days or less. And so I decided, all right, let me take the class. So I took her class. And in learning how to take the class, what the class did was it actually showed me how to figure out my story. Because here's the thing, my story goes like this. About 15 years ago, I used to work for a small IT company outside of Boston, where I'm from. You know how it is when you get hired for a company, they tell you, welcome aboard. Here's your cubicle, here's your box, and here's your plan. So I get to my cubicle and they say, listen, we're a small IT company and we've got $8 million in outstanding receivables that's owed to us. Did y'all hear me? $8 million, which is all part of the story of how Collect the Cash came to be. So I sit in my cubicle and I'm like, $8 million? Mm-hmm. $8 million. So I'm a believer. So I went to God and I'm like, God, I have a question. And basically the conversation with God went like this. Hey, God. Yes, D. How are you? You know what, God? Overall, I am fantastic, but I have an $8 million problem. And your word says you have not because you ask not. So God, I need a clue on how I'm supposed to break down or collect $8 million. I got quiet. And what came up during the conversation with God was that business to business collections, which is what Collect the Cash is three things. It's problem solving, number one, it's customer service, number two, and it's gratitude, which you see above my head. It's gratitude. So when I got back to my cube, I said, okay, God showed me how to do this. So problem solve, customer service, gratitude. Cool. Get on the phone. I start making calls on behalf of the customer, and I collect $6 million in 60 days while working part-time. So here's how the story of all the collected cash came about. I worked for a company as a part-time collector that I got hired to collect $8 million. I went to God, I got my clue. I collect $6 million in 60 days while working part-time. The CEO of the company says, listen, we need to have a chat. We all come downstairs and they say, listen, we want to thank everybody for their services across sales, contracts, order entry, invoicing, payments, and collections. My lane. We're closing the company. Right. They closed the company. 2 months before Christmas, 100 people lose their job. Yeah, that part. After I picked myself up off the floor, I realized, wow, this can happen to anybody who works for a company, whether you are an employee or whether you actually have a business and you lose contracts. So I decided to tell my story about Collect the Cash, which is this. Collect the cash. The sale is not complete until the money's in the bank. If this story is starting to resonate with you and make sense, click the link. You can go to www.collectthecash.biz/book. That's www.collectthecash.biz/book and get your copy. Also, if you are a business owner and you're like, man, I'm struggling with how do I collect my money? I don't like to ask people for payments. Trust me, I get you. In the book, I teach you the art and science of collecting your money. Because here's the thing. When you decide to be in business, when you decide to write a book, when you decide to step outside the norm, you're going to have to take risks. Taking risks is part of life. You decide for example, being an author. Think about it. When you decide to tell your story as an author, you're taking the risk that your story is going to resonate, hopefully with at least one person. Well, in my case, I've been blessed. It resonates with lots of people. But there are times when you don't even know whether your story fits. And I had to decide that my story fit. Now you can imagine, I do collections. I do business to business collections for a living. So I work with companies and corporations and government agencies on how to recover money. Not super sexy, not super fun, but it's important because if you're in business, you got to have two things. You got to have sales. I'm sorry, you got to have three things. You got to have sales. You need to have a contract. You got to do, and then you have to get paid. I'm sharing collect the cash. The sale is not complete until the money is in the bank to tell you why collecting the cash is so important. It's important because number one, how do you have money in your business if you don't have any sales? If you don't have a way to track your sales, if you don't have a way to capture what's up with your customers. The story I started off this show with when I said I worked for this company that had $8 million. Now they were tracking their sales, absolutely. But what they neglected to do was follow up and make sure they got paid. My story to write Collect the Cash came about because me working for this company and then me watching company after company after company shut down. Y'all heard of Payless Shoes and Charmin Charlie's. All of those used to be small businesses at one point that grew and eventually closed because they had lots of sales, but they didn't have the money in the bank. Well, Collect the Cash is my personal journey about that process of why collecting your payments is so important. But also, it was also an opportunity for me to bring my faith into the workplace. Now, there are lots of people who be like, D, what does that have to do with writing the book? Everything. Because here's the thing. I started the conversation by saying there are people who might decide to write a book and they feel like, no one want to hear my story. Well, that was me. I didn't know that my story with Collect the Cash would resonate with people. I just decided that I cared about small business owners and I wanted them to win. And that's what I learned when I took my writing class. When I told this story, my writing coach said, D, I know why you want to write your book. You want to write your book because you want us to win. You want us to win in the money game. I want y'all to secure the bag. I want you to know where the money resides. I want you to make sure you get paid. I want you to collect the cash. And so when she reframed what I do and why it matters so much, I realized, wow, I really can make a difference in a dollar, or lots of dollars in this case. And so I decided to share my story. I decided to go through the journey of writing a book. I don't know if you've ever tried to write something and you're like, man, I can't seem to get my thoughts together. I can't seem to get the points to come to make sense. I'm struggling with how do I put this together. One of the blessings that I did was I actually went through her 90-day class. So I actually had to come up with a format. I had to come up with an outline. I had to come up with great titles. I had to expand on my thoughts, and I actually had to take it from the corporate speak, which is what I'm used to, or the government speak, and put it into layman's terms so that basically a small business, an entrepreneur, a person who just actually made just like a really good story would be interested in this. And I said, oh, okay. And so we went through that journey. This journey to become an author, it took a year. So I spent 90 days in her class, 90 days of getting the outline of the book. Because after I finished, y'all, I thought, oh yeah, I got a book. She was like, no, you don't have a book. You got a story. You got an outline. I was like, what? Are you serious? She's like, yeah, seriously. You got an outline. And so I had to sit with the concept that I wanted to tell the story, and that it needed more work. So that meant I had to get another writing coach who could say, okay, let me see what you've created, and then let me work with you to make this a better story. So we did that. So that's 2 rounds of coaches. That's the first coach to get the outline. Then there's the second coach to take what was created and actually put it into a format that could be eventually published. And then I took a publishing course, and I met my publisher and had you pitch the manuscript to her to say, would you publish this? And of course she read it and she said yes. And then you go through that process of working with a publisher, working with the graphic designer, working with getting the title right and getting the spacing right and getting all of those things right, and then dealing with the editors. All of this is all part of writing a book. And most people are like, man, I didn't know. I just thought I could just slap something together and do it. No, if you want a book that's of quality, no, you take a writing class, you get a writing coach. You actually learn. If you're smart, you're going to want to learn about the publishing process and how it works. And then you have to work with the graphic designer to get the title and the picture that best represents you. So when I first started Collect the Cash, I had a hot mess. I had a picture of me, a stack of books, and something else that looked crazy. And when I submitted it to the publisher, she was like, "No, that's not you. They came up with the design, which is what I have today, and I'm so grateful that they were able to see what I couldn't see. Because I don't know how to publish a book. I didn't need a year ago. I didn't even know how to write a book. But here's the thing: when you decide to go after anything, it starts with a decision. The reason I get to be on here today on Black Authors Rock, and thanks to Dr. LaTracy for this opportunity again, is because I made a decision. I made a decision a year ago to tell my story. I made a decision to invest in myself. I made a decision to take the writing class, to get a writing coach, to take a publishing class, to work with the publisher and learn the process of what my book was going to look like, and go through the revisions and go through all the questions and go through a lot of things, but to eventually actually this year, actually this year, April 20th, the book was actually published, and we actually launched it in Times Square, New York City, on a billboard, y'all. A year ago, that wasn't even a concept. So I'm telling you this to tell you that, number one, you have to start with a decision. That if you want to be an author, it starts with a decision. The steps to becoming an author are taking writing classes, are finding out if you have a story that makes sense, that you actually can share. Number two, don't be afraid to get assistance. I wouldn't be sitting here today if I had not learned to ask questions and ask for assistance. That's part of the journey. How people are successful is that they get help. They get help. They tell their story, they share their concerns, they share their problem, and then they go get what they needed. I needed a writing coach. I needed a publisher. I needed a graphic artist. I needed an editor. And then I needed to step into my brilliance of what I do. I collect money. I do business to business collections for government agencies, corporations, companies. I'm a speaker. I'm an author. This time last year, I was none of those things. But how it started was making it a decision. The decision is everything. And that's how your life changes. If you look at your life right now, as you're listening to me today, you might be thinking, well, Dee, that's great. Well, you've done all these things. Did you hear me what I said? That was this time last year, none of those things were true. But it started with my decision to invest in me, my decision to write my story, my decision to take my career, which has been a contract administrator, dealing with problems, dealing with money, dealing with customers, dealing with clients, and do something different. I looked at COVID, as I said last year, I jokingly say it was God's timeout. Well, I looked at it and said, okay, when I come out of this, what are you going to have to show for it? Well, I decided that, number one, I wanted to leave a legacy. I don't have kids, so Collect the Cash is my legacy, and it's my gift to the business community. It's my gift to entrepreneurs and business owners who struggle with their cash flow, who struggle with systems, who struggle with, how do I do this? That's what I decided. And then as my favorite person says on Chris Cuomo from CNN, he says, let's get after it. Well, I decided to get after it. And today I'm sitting here on Black Authors Rock talking about Collect the Cash. I'm sharing with you my story. It started with a decision. Number two, it started also after I made the decision, I had to do the work. I couldn't just make the decision. I actually had to follow through and take the class and do the writing and submit the work, submit my manuscript for, it wasn't a manuscript then, submit my ideas for correction, and then get advice, and be open to coaching and be open to corrections, and then make the corrections, and then decide that this is a path I want to go on and that I'm going to follow through. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it was easy, that everything was 100% peachy. It was not. I was in my feelings on more than one occasion. I was like, I'm smart, but this is a lot. But here's the thing. I would not be sitting here today if I had not decided to make the decision, do the work, follow through, and persevere. So another clue is you have to persevere. Just because things get hard, you can't quit. Behind me, you see books. You see books on both sides. Every one of those people is an author. I'm sure when they were sitting down writing their first thoughts, they were like, oh yeah, this is a piece of cake. And then when they started to develop the story, they were like, man, this is more work than I thought. Exactly. Well, the same thing with Collect the Cash. When I first started it, I was like, oh yeah, this is a piece of cake. Because of course, I've got a bachelor's degree, master's degree, piece of cake. No. you can have all the education in the world, but when you go to write a book, it's a different journey, because that means you have to learn from, if you want to be good at what you do, you have to learn from people who are better than you, which means you have to come under subjection. You have to be willing to be coached. You have to be willing to get correction, to get feedback, and then follow their advice so you can actually have an end result. I wouldn't have an end result if I had not been willing to submit to the teaching of Sheree Robin, if I had not been willing to listen to my writing coach, J.C. Gardner, or the publisher, Penn Legacy, which was Sharon Monet. I would not be here today if I had not been willing to work with them and listen to and make the course corrections all the time, each time it was coming along. I can't sit here and tell you, oh yeah, it was I Dream of Jeannie easy. It was not. I had to sit, I had to deal with my feelings. I had to, ask a lot of questions and work through my thoughts around stuff, and then finally realize that, okay, they have what I want. Penn Legacy has already published lots of books. I wanted to be a published author. That means I needed to get in agreement so we could get this done. My writing coach has published other books. I needed to learn from her. I needed to learn from Sheree as well. So those are the three people that were instrumental in helping and working with me to Collect the Cash to become the book it is today. Now, you might be sitting here going, oh, Dee, that's great. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this. Well, you know what? Here's the thing. You can decide that I don't want to take the journey of writing a book. Okay. But you might have something else you want to do. Let's say you want to lose weight. Let's say you want to get out of debt. Let's say you want to make a change. Again, whether you write a book or not, that's a personal choice. I said earlier that I wrote this book, number one, because I want business owners to win in their finances. But number two, it's my legacy. I don't have kids. So I was blessed to come up with the idea that, okay, this is the way you can leave a legacy. And this will last long after I'm gone. And so being able to do that was important. And then when I started to see how leaving legacy, people who leave legacy, they leave blueprints, they leave steps, they leave processes, they leave ideas. The things that we are enjoying today is because somebody sat down at some point and they wrote down, this is how I did this. Y'all remember the song, This Is How We Do It? Well, basically, that's what they did. They wrote down, this is how we did this. And they gave you the steps. Or let's say it was your grandmother or grandfather who was a great cook. And you're like, what's the recipe? How do you make whatever they made that you absolutely enjoyed? They gave you steps. They wrote down the recipe. I need a pinch of this, 2 tablespoons of that, whatever. And they gave you the steps. If you were fortunate to write it down, great. Or in this case, if you have your phone and they tell you it, you can record it. The point is you have it, you can preserve it. Well, in the same way with this book, the book is my way of writing down my recipe, my processes, my systems of how I have collected over $13 million and counting for companies and corporations and government agencies. But also, it's not just how much money I've collected, it's about the journey to get there. It was me deciding to have a career in contract administration and in accounts receivable. And then it's me deciding that this story deserves to be told. And then me deciding to do the work to tell the story. Then it's stepping into my brilliance and saying, yeah, this matters. And here's why. And because there are business owners and coaches and consultants and all kinds of people that are having this issue, but are too afraid to say something, I said, okay, here's a way that I can present this message, this idea to others to say, okay, you can do this. You can learn how to set up a system to track your accounts, here's a process on what to do when you don't get paid. Here's how to stop losing money and stop bleeding in your business. And here's one person that cares that you win. And I want you to win in business and with your money. And so once I got clear about that, then writing the story and then starting to talk about it, starting to go on podcasts, starting to do Facebook Live, starting to do all these things, starting to become written up in media, the story grew. But here's the thing. I wouldn't have had a story if I didn't decide to write the book. And that's why the beauty of being a part of Black Authors Rock today is so important, because it's sharing this story. There are a lot of people that want to write a book. You're like, oh yeah, I want to write a book. I need to tell my story. Okay. But when are you going to make a decision to do it? Because you're not going to have a story unless you decide to do it. It's that part. And I think that's what it is. It's like the people that we admire across all genres, across all industries, Why we admire them is because they're shining at what they do. But y'all are forgetting the thing. They made a decision, number one, and then they did the work. And number two, three, they persevered. No level of success, I don't care what you do, no level of success comes without making decisions, doing the work, persevering, asking for help, and just having that decision. I'm just not quitting. I'm just not quitting. I'm just not quitting. I'm just not. I don't care how hard it gets. I'm just not quitting. When you get that determined to get something done, you'll get it done. Now, I decided that I wanted to write this book. I decided that I wanted to make a difference in $1. I decided that I wanted my mission to be bigger than me and that I wanted business owners to win. And when I decided that, I started seeing God open up amazing opportunities like Black Authors Rock. This conversation today is going worldwide, y'all. The book is in a bookstore on a military base, y'all. Understand that? I mean, imagine that. A year ago, this wasn't even a concept. But my book, Collect the Cash, is part of the Black Authors Rock community, which is in the Black Authors Rock bookstore on a military base. And it has the opportunity to be on other military bases all around the world. Where it says Ephesians 3:20, that's God. It's that part. But I wouldn't have that part if I hadn't started the book. y'all, I hope y'all are catching this, that it all starts with a decision. It all starts with a decision. Even deciding today to ask for the opportunity to do a virtual book tour, a book conversation about the book. It started with a decision. Can I come on and tell my story? Can I come on and talk about the book? Can I come on and share my writer's journey and why this matters to me? And Dr. Tracy said, yeah. All right, cool. And here we are. Here we are. We're doing this. And here's the thing. It's always a journey. I took a breath because I needed to pause and recognize it's always a journey. It's always a journey to get to the next level. It's a journey to become an author. It's a journey to get out of debt. It's a journey to lose weight. It's a journey to make any changes in your life. These principles don't all just apply to you being an author. It's to whatever it is that you want to do. For example, since we're talking about books, like I said behind me, there are all these books. Every one of those authors started with a piece of paper and a pen, and they jotted down some ideas. And then they went and they started writing. They probably had journals, and they probably went back and typed up their journals and submitted it to an editor to say, does this make sense? Then they had to go through the process of getting feedback and getting correction and getting their ideas reshaped so that it wasn't just about them, but it was a story that could be sold and shared to the masses. Well, same thing. Whatever it is that you decide to do, you have to make a decision. I cannot stress that enough, because until you make the decision, nothing changes. Let me say it again for the people in the back. Until you make a decision, nothing changes. Change starts with decisions. It always does. Like, for example, I've cut my hair. I cut my hair off many, many years ago. People are like, what does that have to do with writing a book? The point is that it was about making a decision. I used to have long hair. I cut it off. And so I've been wearing it short for over 20 years, but it started with a decision. Then I had to do the work to learn how to take care of short hair because I had long hair before. Now I'm like, all right, you got to do this. You need different brushes and all these things. The point is that I made a decision to cut my hair off and wear my hair short. I made a decision to write a book. I made a decision to become a speaker. I've had to learn how to get comfortable being on camera. Some of you might be like, oh, that looks so easy. Well, it's not. You have to learn how to do lighting, get a right microphone, and get yourself ready to be on camera, and how to connect with people and how to have fun and not stress. It's all those things. But it all started with a decision. When you decide that you want to be great, and great is what you decide is great, you have to do the work. You have to do the work. And then you have to keep doing the work. It's a constant thing. You might be like, oh man, I thought I was done. Nope. You're not done until you get up out of here. You're not done until you get up out of here. But in the meantime, while you're doing the work and making decisions and making changes, write the book. Write the book. Or at least do this. If you're not sure how to write the book, I would recommend you take a writing class. That's what did it for me, was taking the class and getting the framework on what you need to do. And then even while you're doing that, talk to the people who have published books to find out, okay, what makes for a good story? What makes a good story? They'll tell you. Exactly. You'll get the support in the Black Authors Rock community. They will tell you what makes a good story. And then if your story doesn't fit right now, if they give you honest feedback and they tell you, you know what, your story doesn't, your concept for the story needs some work. Don't get in your feelings about that. Go get the help. Go get the help. Be willing to listen, be willing to take a class, be willing to get coached, be willing to get the information to get better. I keep talking about this because here's the thing. I wouldn't be sitting here today if I had not done and keep doing the things I'm telling y'all to do. I had to get coaching. I had to get support. I had to ask for help. I had to make course corrections because, like I said earlier, my first book cover, it was me on the cover, a stack of books, and it's talking about collected cash, and it was a mess. First of all, it was not a flattering picture of me. The books look a hot mess, and I didn't know. But what did I do? I got help. When I got with the publisher, I submitted what I had, and she was like, "Oh no, this is not it. We're gonna scrap this, and we're gonna course correct this, and we're gonna make it better." And I'm glad, because if I had not submitted to her advice, we wouldn't have Collect the Cash now, with a beautiful cover, with a message that people connect with. And when people say, "Oh man, I love your cover," I'm so happy about that, because imagine if I had stayed stuck in my ways about I have to have it this way, and I wasn't willing to make the changes, I wouldn't be here today. Absolutely not. Are you kidding? No, absolutely not. And so I just want to tell you that, number one, thank you for listening to me telling my story about writing the book called Collect the Cash. The sale is not complete until the money's in the bank. Number two, thanks again to Black Authors Rock for the opportunity to talk about this book, for it to be featured in the Black Authors Rock bookstore, to be on the Air Force Base, to be on a military installation, y'all. Y'all don't even understand how huge that is. And number three, here's the cool thing, y'all. The book got launched in New York City, in Times Square, on a billboard, y'all. I'm sharing that to tell you that was a dream. That was a dream that came true. But it would not have come true if I had not made a decision, and if I had not done the work, and I had not persevered, and if I had not gotten the help. So those are the four things I hope you take away from this lesson from me today. Again, thanks again to Black Authors Rock for the opportunity to share this. I hope you guys are enjoying your Friday. I hope you have a great holiday weekend. Celebrate your independence, celebrate your freedom, celebrate the gift of life and health and strength. And then from there, take care. All right, y'all. Cheers.